And welcome back, everyone, to the second video in the second class meeting. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So at this point, Zach is going to read off the human story where it is now. For those of you out there that want to add your input, please wait until we're done. You might want to grab pen, paper, and jot notes because it is a big story.
Yeah, it's a little lengthy.
It's a little lengthy, but, you know, do like I did. Just kind of kick back, close your eyes, and really try to get into what's going on. Because if you can start visualizing everything, it's so damn awesome. At least to me. I just want to hand this over to James Cameron or Michael Bay and say, make it happen. But
oh,
Zach,
wow, yeah. Let me take a pick as to which one of those I'd rather have handle.
Well, Cameron, of course, but he's probably scuba diving somewhere, so you know how that goes.
And now, Explosions of the World with Michael Bay. So, a quick intro, though, just some things that I want to get across. What you're about to hear is kind of an overview, bit of lore, which I'm breaking this story, this whole thing that leads up to our game, into 3 parts. Kind of like a dramatic play. And I've yet to decide if I want the third part to be the player's experience, or if there will be third parts to a complete story that will pretty much close with you picking up the game and moving on. The first part is everything that happens from slightly postmodern history up through the moment that the planet Alethea is discovered. Just up to the discovery. It says nothing of the initial correspondence or communication with the Aletheans. That's actually going to come from their perspective. Because as far as I'm concerned, the story would be, while, you know, interesting, of course, I think as Earthlings ourselves, we can, you know, we've seen so many sci-fi movies, we can kind of figure out how the communications would go on our front. It's so much more fascinating now to shift over to their perspective, to these really strange people coming in and making first contact with them.
And they've also got their own full lore and backstory treatment going on that is as detailed as Zach is about to present to you guys with the humans. But again, tonight we're just focusing on that. So as you guys see, it's not like we're just staying locked in on story only. There are things as far as technology goes that we're now pursuing as well, just in a exploratory fashion. So you're going to get all sorts of content over different things coming into the MMO video classroom area. But
so again, this is all lore-based stuff. It has nothing to do with player experience. I want to remind people of that.
And Zach's mic has been pushed back a little bit further. I just wanted to check, make sure Zach sounds, you know, as clear as me or volume-wise as loud as me. If you guys don't mind, Zach, say a couple things.
Well, I will ask you guys to bear with me a little bit. I'm a tad congested today.
Okay, good deal. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
So yeah, I'm a tad congested. It's the weather. I think it's just my turn to catch this little bug that's been flying around everybody.
Gotcha.
So if I have to pause for a minute and take a sip of water or something, my apologies in advance. Anyways.
Get him a glass of wine.
I wish. Actually, I read better that way. So, anyways.
Here we go.
In late August of 2056, instruments aboard the Hubble 2 Deep Space Observatory platform detected an incoming object of unknown origin moving toward the solar system at a trajectory perpendicular to the Milky Way galactic disk. Over the coming days, further analysis showed that the object, roughly 120 meters in diameter, was moving on a collision course with the planet Earth. Its time of impact was estimated to be approximately 7 months. The news caused a sensation across the various media nets of the planet, with public responses ranging from panic-filled riots to complete dismissal of the seriousness of the event. By September, the findings of the Hubble 2 team had been confirmed by NASA Incorporated, the CNSA, and the European Space Agency. A joint effort was established between China, the US, the United Kingdom, and a conglomerate of other interested nations to utilize their nuclear arsenals as a means to divert the object. Several proposals were submitted, with the winning proposal being to create a string of 7 cluster-like nuclear charges along the encounter tangency, each detonation pushing the object further off course. Farther off course? November of 2056 saw the efforts off the ground and these network clusters being set up, each one being used as a means to aid in launching the next. As the deadline approached, hopes were high, as it seemed that the efforts were well ahead of schedule. In late March 2057, all eyes turned skyward as the object came within range of the first cluster. At once, all contact with the computer systems operating the cluster was lost. Backup systems and redundant detonators also failed. Long-range telescopes monitoring the cluster were unable to confirm a detonation. The first cluster was a failure. For 3 days, tensions mounted as systems were hastily readjusted for a new trajectory, with those nearest the planet taking the longest as they required the farthest adjustments. 3 days later, the same thing happened. The primary, secondary, tertiary, and final redundancy systems of the second cluster all failed. In a panic, the administrating body over the project hammered out one contingency plan after another, while an anxious public fueled the fires of hostility, with each country blaming all of the others for their incompetence in the failure. As a last hope effort, the 5 remaining clusters were rerouted. Those closest to the object were pulled back, while those closest to Earth were sent farther out toward the object. The plan was to try to get as many of the clusters as possible within range of each other to detonate as one, hopefully causing a shockwave that would shift the incoming trajectory of the object just enough to escape impact. The third cluster couldn't make the rendezvous in time, leaving only 4. Finally, with the object just within range, detonation commands were sent to all 4 clusters at once. All 4 failed. With only 6 days before impact, total chaos swept the surface of the planet. Those who were able retreated to shelters. Many died in the violence that ensued. Communication media suffered catastrophic meltdowns as humanity prepared for the worst. The point of impact was estimated to be somewhere in the southern hemisphere, either in the oceans surrounding Antarctica or possibly on the continent itself. This news did nothing to stem the fires of terror sweeping the earth. Riots swept through most of the major cities of the world, especially in Sydney, Australia, and Johannesburg, South Africa. Over the coming days, the object steadily came within visual range of the planet. As a last resort, some of the smaller nuclear powers attempted to fire their own ICBMs at the object. More deaths ensued, with one such effort failing due to a hastily assembled launch with century-old equipment dating back to the Cold War. The blast immediately wiped out a large portion of that nation, though the world was too caught up in its own terror to notice. No one even stopped to consider the fallout, which would later drift across Pakistan, Afghanistan, and India. 24 hours before impact, communication satellites surrounding the Earth began to fail. The phenomenon started in the southernmost reaches of the planet, with satellite systems suddenly going dark. Gradually, the phenomenon spread across the various satellites and relays hovering over the planet. At T-minus 7 hours to impact, the entire satellite network of planet Earth was rendered completely non-functional. All contact with the International Space Station network was down, with all 4 stations considered a total loss. Impact Object 4146 entered Earth's southern atmosphere at 2:16 GMT on April 6, 2057. Moments later, it crashed down in Antarctica, leaving a tremendous crater and causing a massive steam and smoke plume which would disrupt weather patterns over the next several years. Upon impact, all electronic devices suffered a variety of interference, shutting down or nearly destroying planet-side communications. In the near-complete communication blackout caused by the object, civilization fell into almost complete ruin. Nearly all global communication relied in some way on the satellites or the affected systems, from cellular phones to television to the internet. All of these were knocked completely out. It was not until weeks after the event that Foresight Communications Incorporated, a leader in fiber optic comm technologies and holders of a massive network of dark fiber, began making emergency connections to leading ISPs in an effort to reestablish internet communications, at least on landside systems. Food and water supplies immediately went into a shortage, and energy availability bottomed out to critically low levels. Many humans found themselves in refugee-like conditions with simply nowhere to go. Millions died from starvation and thirst and violence. Little was known about what was actually happening in Antarctica. What was known was that there was tremendous heat emanating from the impact site itself. The nature of this heat, or why it was so intense, remained unknown. The effects, however, were far easier to identify. Over the following 6 months, as the whole of the continent's ice began to melt, seas across the globe rose at a continued rate. Extreme weather patterns known as hypercells erupted across the globe with winds in the hundreds of kilometers per hour. Many more died as the world's coastlands fell prey to horrific tsunami waves and hypercanes. Many island countries were wiped out entirely, including Japan, which suffered a mass exodus into China before the landmass was taken by the sea and the terrible seismic activity resulting from the added pressure on the tectonic plates. using a contingency network of secret military encrypted comm satellites, which had been scheduled to be launched 90 days after a catastrophic communication failure. The key military forces of the world were able to once again communicate, though their respective peoples were still left in the dark. In short order, 3 naval fleets were dispatched to Antarctica to investigate the crash site. The first to arrive, a naval fleet from China, was immediately destroyed in a storm that reportedly included 400-plus km/h winds and hyperswells that were hundreds of meters high. The second fleet, this time from the U.S., was able to bypass the storm but soon lost contact as it traveled beyond the 60th south parallel. No further contact was ever received from that fleet. The third attempt, this time a small British fleet, managed to get just outside the range of the devastating heat waves surrounding the continent, allowing them to make the first report and complete the first scans of what was taking place on the Earth's southernmost land mass. The findings were as terrifying as they were remarkable. Not only was the crash site emitting waves of incredible heat, but there was also a strange field emanating from the location of the site itself. This field seemed to interrupt function of all electronic circuits and obliterate electronic signals. No form of military EMP hardening seemed to hinder the effect. After 3 weeks of being on station, the crew of the British fleet began to experience an outbreak of a cellular degenerative disease, causing them to retreat further back away from the 60th parallel, which soon became known as the Black Line. This degenerative condition was soon thereafter reported in southern areas of the planet, including Australia, South America, and South Africa. The effect did not appear to be contagious, and theories sparked that it was due to the presence of impact object 4146. Though there were massive evacuations of these southern areas, the death toll in such places as New Zealand and the southern tip of South America were catastrophic, with only some 2% of the population managing to escape. To try to ascertain the nature of this field and how we might be able to prevent its effects, a team of scientists was assembled from across the planet with representatives from a variety of scientific research organizations. Leading the efforts was Dr. Thaddeus Rosenberg, a theoretical physicist and proponent of extra-dimensional signal theory, who had recently made strides in proving the existence of multiple dimensions and the signals that resonate between them. The team, globally dubbed the Antarctica Impact Commission, or the AIC, began their official investigations and research from within a heavily armored bunker located in southern Australia. Discovering the nature of this field, which Rosenberg would soon name for himself, was their primary goal. Their research would uncover some horrific truths about the phenomenon and pave the way for the next stage in human evolution and history. All right, that's where the narrative ends. From here on, the story kind of wraps itself up with a series of clippings from various forms of media that will come from Earth's history. So if you notice there's a sudden tonal shift, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, you shouldn't have even told him. You should have just gone right into the clips, because it's so damn cool when you read it that way.
It's true.
But the clips get even better because...
I also needed a break, so...
Oh, okay. Because the clips continue to paint an awesome story.
I do. Well, the other reason I want to bring it up, too, is that if some of you are taking notes and you start writing down some of these dates, please understand that the times themselves are in a heavy state of flux right now, and I haven't decided how long I want some of this to actually take place. So, anyway. Excerpt from Central Media Network Headline News, October 23rd, 2057. It has been over 6 months since Impact Object 4146 touched down in Antarctica, and still there have been no means discovered to get within an observable distance of the crash site. The tremendous heat emanating from the site has not dissipated, and as we have all seen, the severe weather patterns scouring the planet are causing far more devastation to our global crop supply than previously anticipated. The Antarctica Impact Commission, the multinational committee assembled to coordinate efforts to resolve this issue, and headed by Dr. Thaddeus Rosenberg, has still made no comment on whether they have a plan to get to ground zero, and if they can, what they intend to do about the object itself. In a related story, the species emperor penguin now joins the chinstrap penguin along with countless Antarctic animal species in the tragic list of extinctions. Excerpt from blog story originally on sciencenow.hash. Posted June 16, 2058. Removed 2 days later. Retrieved from smilingcowboyarchives.hash. Of course we know we're not being told everything. The Rosenberg report left out any details specifically pertaining to IO-4146, or wormwood, as the religious quacks will have you call it. Of course it made sense at the time for our entire satellite network to be virtually destroyed by the event, but here we are, well over a year later, with the body count from the hyperstorms continually on the rise, and somehow we can't get a working communications satellite back in the air? And what of these leaked cables that indicate a signal of some sort? Are we under attack? Of course, I'm not buying into the alien invasion like some. I don't think we have to imagine that far. Look at China, who somehow managed to have the least trouble with weather, has seen an historically unprecedented boom in their economy, and now hold virtually every patent on practical nanotechnology applications on the market today and tomorrow. I'm not asking you fine folks to think that the Chinese government would intentionally destroy the planet just to come out ahead at the end game, but look back at who did most of the work on IO 4146 detection plans in the first place. I'm just saying that something awfully fishy is going on here. Excerpt from worldnewsnet.hash, newscast, August 2nd, 2061. Today in his Rose Garden speech, USAC President Bozeman gave a heartfelt warning to his fellow American Canadians, urging them to remain vigilant and dedicated to the Americanadian cause and not to give up hope in light of the ongoing tragedies that continually face our nation. We are aware of the problems in our midst, in light of loved ones we still remember, in light of ongoing hunger, ongoing sickness, and the ongoing Americanadian struggle. It is now more important than ever that we embrace one another and focus on adapting to our new environment. Today marks the 5th anniversary of the original spotting of impact object 4146 that destroyed Antarctica, has caused countless species extinctions, and has been responsible for the tragic loss of a large percentage of the human populations in Australia, South America, and South Africa, and from which the still unexplained Rosenberg field still emanates. Excerpt from Forum Post found at nocivilliberties.han.hash. Post was removed within moments, but later retrieved from smilingcowboyarchives.hash. They're going to kill me anyway, so what the hell? Rosenberg field is nothing new. We know it. First discovered August 15, 1977. We just never thought we'd see one this close. Ha! I've uploaded the original scan data along with a crossref for the actual classified breakdown of the WOW signal. Even a layman could call the ball on this one. This has been done to us, folks, and not by anyone on this rock. The really scary part? We're not the first. Excerpt from worldnewscast.hash. Newscast, May 7, 2068. In an official press release, the Rosenberg Commission has declared that the planet Earth's general habitability for the sustainment of human survival has a remaining lifespan of roughly 500 years. At this point, the committee says that the tremendous heat that continues to be emitted by IO 4146, even 12 years after its impact, will have done irreparable damage to our oceans, atmosphere, and to the core of the planet. In an audacious follow-up, NASA Incorporated announced its immediately effective merger with Tomo Raitan Aero Technologies, the Chinese-Indian aerospace conglomerate which has seen tremendous growth over the last 6 years, developing space transportation technology. This marks the largest corporate merger in history. Immediately after the announcement, newly appointed CEO Zhai Haiping released a new mission statement for his company, declaring that the entirety of its considerable research and development program would be dedicated to discovering an alternate world among the stars, and, even as the members of the press corps expressed open skepticism, stating that they already had the means to perform considerable searches and had seen promising results on 3 planets. Stocks for the new corporation are soaring today as the NASDAQ reports. Excerpt from Scientific Americanadian.hash, dated July 1st, 2069. Just over a year has passed since the financial behemoth that is NASA Tomo Raitan started publicizing their spacefaring initiatives, and already we are seeing profound progress in refugee plans for Earth evacuation. This week, NASA TR reports the first fully functional and self-contained lunar colony has been completed, spanning over 100 square miles of subterranean and eco-domed living space. Leasing opportunities are already available, and 2 luxury hotels have already been contracted to be constructed beneath the primary dome. Excerpt from Corporate Times article, dated January 15, 2071. It's been an amazing couple of years for big business on the international markets. We've seen a complete shift from the highly polarized look at the power of big business to help solve the world's problems to a global dependence on the financial and development resources that only big business can offer. After the highly successful merger of NASA Tomo Raitan 3 years ago, not to mention their ever-increasing profit margins, more and more corporations are finding ways to come together into highly focused executive powerhouses. NASA TR gives most of the credit for its tremendous fiscal earnings to the subsidies and licensing from the multiple deep space research probes and orbital platforms it has been developing over the past several years. Just this week, the USAC government has turned down yet another offer by Spartacus Armaments Incorporated to buy out all military debt accrued over the last century. Speculations are widely whispered regarding how much longer the powers on Capitol Hill will be able to hold out before they end up having to sell off the armed forces to meet the demands of a country in desperate need of financial stability. Spartacus Armaments Incorporated enjoyed a tremendous series of growth spurts during the years immediately after Impact Day. Excerpt from World News Net, dated March 4th, 2080. A tragic setback on the Mars colonization efforts headed up by the NASA Tomo-Raitan conglomerate today, as over 7,000 people were killed and hundreds more injured when a primary section of the support structure for the new Albuquerque dome buckled, resulting in a catastrophic collapse. Most of the deaths were attributed to the sudden decompression of a 9-block section of the city, though other fatalities were reported to have been caused by falling debris and the panic that ensued in the aftermath. An investigation is underway by NASA TR technicians who claim the fault to lie with several subcontractors hired to reinforce the struts of the dome 2 years ago. NASA TR representatives have made no official statement on the findings, though it has been reported that they will be seeking significant monetary damages from these contractors pending the results of the investigation. Excerpt from worldnewsnet.health, dated October 17, 2089. In a remarkable breakthrough, pharmaceutical and biotechnology megacorporation Sapienetics Incorporated, UNASDAQ SPN, has announced a new procedure for cellular reconstruction which may prove to be a cure for the Rosenberg field degenerative disease. This new patented process, dubbed DNA regrafting, can reverse the effects of the RFD disease for up to 3 years. Patient tests are already underway, but don't rush to the hospital just yet. Sapienetics Incorporated has reported that the entry cost for being a test patient is starting at... Excerpt from Libertarian News article, December 16, 2096. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to stand up and declare in one voice that although we need the power of the corporate world in our continuing efforts to find a viable refuge from Earth, that we will not be subjugated any longer by the ever more prevalent demands of a corporate global society. It's time for us to remember our human heritage as masters of thought, of ingenuity, and most importantly, of our own destiny. It is with this in mind that I implore each and every free-thinking human being reading this right now to cast your support and your sustainment vote for the worldwide formation of the United Earth hegemony, so that we, as a single and unified people, can finally escape the tyrannical and single-mindedly materialistic whims of the corporate profit margins. For you, for us, and for those yet to come. Robert D. Thorenson, President of the United President of the United Earth hegemony. Time for another sip of
Time for water.
Yes.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm a huge fan of all the excerpts myself. They're if you really start mapping it out on paper, you because of course one of the things we said that was important to us from the human side was aligning yourself with corporations and technology. All of that is being very well defined all the way back in history now, which is absolutely awesome. Okay, continue, Zach.
Excerpt from the Executive Scientist online NetZine article, February 2nd, 2099. Traveling the cosmos at the speed of profit? NTR, formerly the NASA Tomo-Raitan conglomerate, announced today a tremendous breakthrough in stellar propulsion systems, allowing for transportation of goods and materials in less time than it takes for light to cross the same distance. Of course, we've had theories for years that an anti-relativity transportation process would be discovered. They all seem like pipe dreams that couldn't possibly be achieved before the Rosenberg clock reaches zero. Such fears were squashed today as a low-orbital platform launched the first anti-relativity engine-driven space probe. The probe took a series of dust samples from one of the innermost rings of Saturn and brought the samples back to the platform in less than 6 hours, with over 5 hours dedicated purely to the sampling process. Actual round-trip travel time for the probe was estimated at roughly 26 seconds, while a beam of light would take nearly an hour and a half to cross the same distance. Once perfected, this technology will allow... Excerpt from the Executive Scientist online NetZine article, September 10, 2102. It's been only 2.5 years since the explosion of anti-relativity transport, and already we've seen a boom among the spacefaring industries. While no breakthroughs have been announced in the possibility of transporting human beings safely via anti-relativity means, this new announcement was made by NTR and Chinesian nanotechnology firm Hamamoto Technologies Incorporated that makes possible one of the first colonization efforts to take place outside the solar system. Using a new form of nanite machines, HI claims it will be able to put settlers into a long-term cryogenic state, preserving all bodily functions indefinitely and allowing for long-term travel to distant colonies to take place with minimal cost to human years and lives. Already, the first prototype ship is being constructed. Excerpt from UEH News Group, newscast July 22nd, 2124. The UEH Science Bureau announced today the closure of the UEHS Bountiful Listening Center, the historic network of radio dish arrays that has been listening for any return broadcast from the colonization ship UEHS Bountiful. Bountiful disappeared 10 years ago this week, and no contact has been received since. All dishes but one have been realigned to boost communications with the Titania colony, which will next month mark its 1-year anniversary as Earth's first and only successful domed colony outside the solar system. The search continues for another habitable planet that might be settled without the need for such drastic terraforming. Excerpt from UEH News Group, newscast July 22nd, 2191. The United Earth Hegemony President Henri Garnier, I'm so terrible with French names, announced today that after nearly 60 years of searching, one of our oldest deep space probes has finally identified a planet that may prove to be a viable alternative to our Earth. The entire world waits with bated breath for more news on the matter, and we now turn to... And that's where it actually cuts off. The humans have suffered a catastrophic event. Their world is being destroyed. It's changed humanity in a lot of ways. We've scoured the stars, and at the 11th hour, we found something. And that is where the... Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you feel that way, Niels. But that is where we're actually going to transition over to the Alethian side of things.
We're not going to talk about what hit the Earth at the moment.
Actually, NATO, I have the only familiarity I have with Neon Genesis Evangelion, because I know it's pronounced in like 7 different ways, are the really cool robot suit machines. That's all I know about it, because they do look pretty damn nifty.
But Robert said very, very nice stuff, Zach. Hopefully Robert can see where he provided some fantastic inspiration.
Oh, I even borrowed some terminology from him.
It was great stuff, and after reading what he had put up there, I liked the idea of backing all the way up to pretty much our time and tracing forward, 1,000 to 2,000 years. And the reason we're not going to talk about what has hit Earth yet, more of that, you're going to get to put more of that together yourself as
we move forward.
As we move forward.
Yeah.
Because I know that, there was Neil saying, no, write more. Well, this treatment has also been done. Well, it's not completed, but a good chunk of it is in place for the Alethians.
Which has got a very, very different tone.
Yep. Which is, and we won't even tell.
No.
We'll hold off on how that's delivered. Let them just kind of get a feel for that when you start reading that one. But no, not yet, Prototype. We're getting there. We're getting there.
So the idea, very generally speaking, is that I'm going to be doing away with the idea that there has been a huge war between the greedy Earth people and the Alethians. And we're going to turn humans into refugees. Now, if you guys are wondering, what does this mean for Earth? Are we not going to be able to have Earth in the game? Absolutely, we can have Earth in the game. At one point, I had mentioned that Earth had about 500 years left, and we're only about 150 years into that deadline. There's about another 350 to 400 years before Earth is probably going to be completely uninhabitable. And there's no reason why you couldn't even go back then as a quote-unquote visitor. So it does allow us the opportunity to let you come back, or to let you at least see the planet in a really horrific state.
And if you were paying very close attention, if you paid very close attention to the initial story proposal and mind maps that were done originally when dealing with the humans, and then, of course, the very first class, and where we want to take things as far as story goes, before we really get into discussing game mechanics and all, which is coming very soon, guys. I love the fact that we're now having for the human side at the moment that everybody's now heard, we're having a very rich history to pull from. We have the definition of these, or the birth of these major corporations. If you were paying very close attention to what the corporations specialized in, you'll start to get a feel
You'll start recognizing names.
Yep.
You'll also see what happened to the world and how the rise of these corporations affected human history by causing a backlash resulting in an Earth hegemony.
Exactly. So we're getting so damn close with the human side.
So yeah, it was pretty fun to write. I had to be very careful. See, I only got a chance to write it once, and I'm always a big fan. If I'm going to write something seriously fiction based, it's write twice, edit once. And I've only had my first go at this, really. And I've also really had to hold myself back because I keep wanting to explore characters and side tangents and I have other. Well, you could just tell so many stories, and I've been trying very hard not to do that.
Robert said something that I hope is so true. The immersion factor is going to be very high.
Hope so.
I hope so. I want a game like that.
Yeah.
Personally, WoW with friends gave me that feeling as I worked my way all the way up to 80, then 85.
Yeah.
But once you're there, then it becomes. I mean, it's still an absolute blast when you're meeting up with a lot of friends and you're coordinating some of the more complex raids. But outside of that,
well, I think it's different for everybody. I mean, I've gone through now and played through a pretty good chunk of the Horde campaign, reading everything.
Yeah,
and there's a really rich story for that too. But WoW has gotten very popular. And most of the people of the world are of the TLDR persuasion, and anything they have to read is a complete and utter put off.
Yeah.
Which is why, like when you see BlizzCon, there's like the 6 or 7 people who have all the questions about lore. Everybody else just wants to hear about gameplay mechanics.
Right.
But this is still our game, and it's still very important to us to have at least the opportunity for those who are interested to experience a rich and hopefully well thought out backstory. And it's been really fun, at least on my end, to be able to help define that.
And then coming up with our game mechanics that will sit down into this world, I don't see that as being difficult. I know there's been a lot of debate over in the MMO classroom, which is awesome. Man, you guys have had some amazing posts over there. It has been just an absolute pleasure to read. And you could start out with the idea of, this is the game I want to make, and then have story kind of conform to that. We're not a game company at 3D Buzz. We are an educational house. I mean, we teach people how to do things, and we're responsible.
But we're flexible.
We're responsible for a lot of people out there that are working in professional studios, be it game, film, broadcast. Which makes me feel good that we've accomplished a few cool things over the past 10 years. But one of the nice things about putting out these videos is we're not under the standard type of
gun
turnaround. You'll say gun, I'll say turnaround. Both are true. For a game studio that's got investors and they've got to quickly get to release versions and you've got to see the progress moving forward. I
still want to have that.
Yeah, as Andrew says, Mr. Dark Mobius, you have complete freedom, and that's true, and I love that because that is what is going to allow us to one, hopefully make what'll be an absolutely wicked awesome game in the end. Two, explore different technologies. That's one of the reasons I really love having Nelson around, because Nelson, man, I don't know, he's got like his sniffer is tuned for new technology. It could be somewhere a million sites away, websites away, and someone makes a little bitty post about a new little tech tool that's going to help streamline something and don't know how, but 15 minutes later Nelson knows about it. And that's awesome. I love that, because every time we get into our Skype calls, he's like, hey, have you heard of this? And I hate it because I'm just like, no,
never heard of that.
Here, and then the worst is, let me show you something cool. It's going to do one or two things. It's going to explode and make Zach laugh and Nelson sigh real bad, or it's going to work right and give me a flipping headache.
Right.
Trying to follow through with what he's just put up. Nelson's very gifted and very talented. So I hate that we got to redo those videos, but yeah.
What are you going to do?
He's right about us having the complete freedom, and that means a lot.
Well, Segfault said, sometimes a little pressure is needed. Trust me, Segfault.
Oh,
pressure's there.
Segfault. Well, you know, what if we don't update you guys for 2 weeks or put out videos? There's going to be a hell of a lot of pressure because there's a lot more people in this class than what we originally intended. So the pressure is actually a lot higher. But this is also a very challenging and fun project for us. It's educational to a lot of you out there, especially those of you that have never tried to accomplish something like this. It's very educational to us as well. I mean, we went through the MMO tech demo just so that we could get to the end and say, okay, well, we had it successfully working with close to 40 people in there, and the server didn't even care. Fantastic. But every system that I have in here, I absolutely hate and want to do pretty much different stuff. I mean, I'm so happy that we invested the 6 months to explore the way we did, because I already know there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be done completely differently.
NATO had an interesting question.
What do you got?
It says, would you mind if I take a shot at a rewrite and wing it your way, or would you rather keep it in your hands? I'll admit, anything that I do like this that is purely creativity based, I do get a little bit attached to. I think any artist does that, but I'm going to kind of clamp my jaw down and say, knock yourself out. I mean, I got a little bit that way with, like, the characters of ADP, you know, because, like, I fell in love with the Goblin, especially. He is just one of the coolest characters I've ever seen. You start really animating with him, and he just really, really does have some character and some personality. But then I started seeing everybody else making one, too, and I had to kind of let him go, you know, and just let him do his thing. And so right out of the gate, I can't get... As much as I love this story, and doing this kind of thing really is a labor of love for me, yeah, by all means, knock yourself out. That doesn't mean I'll take anything you say and incorporate it. I still kind of have some sort of veto power over that, but please, have a good time. I will absorb good ideas, though, as Robert Boss has already seen.
Mr. I don't know how to pronounce that. Giuzzardo, perhaps?
J.J. Gazzardo.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. J.J. Abrams,
yes.
Here at 3D Buzz in the MMO forums. All right. As he just said, a good point. On a 3-year game dev cycle, that the first year is almost all dedicated to R&D. And super glad the videos of this process are being made. Me too. And I'm glad that you guys out there, at least right now it seems like everyone, but let's just say in the end, we hope that it stays that way, but I'm sure it won't. But I'm really thankful that you guys are willing to watch R&D videos where we can be fools.
I want to throw this out too. Rick the Blade says, how much more difficult would making an MMO with UDK be compared to with Unity? I do not speak for Epic Games. I'd like to go on record with that now, but from everything that I've read on the matter, you can't do it with UDK. It could be done potentially with the Unreal Engine as a licensee, because there are some aspects of a socket server that you can incorporate that way. But to the best of my knowledge, you do not have, and this is actually from Photon as well, you don't have external socket server capabilities.
Well, I don't. I mean, obviously, from Photon's point of view, it would work.
Yeah.
The only thing is, and I've not worked with UDK at all,
right,
other than just looking in on you and Jeff and making sure projects were progressing when we were doing contract work for Epic, but from my days with UT3, yeah, UT3, UT4,
well,
UT3,
again,
2000.
I know what you mean. The old,
damn, what number?
2004, 3, UT99, the old.
Yeah, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I did use it, God, it was like 12 billion years ago. Yeah, Dark Mobius got it right. 35532665256 exactly. Now RHM did. I think with UDK you can call DLLs, and I agree. I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah.
And being able to set that up, then you could write your own wrappers and
yep,
and integrate everything. But can you, with UDK, without source, can you now create geometry on the fly? So
I mean,
create,
while people
create your own mesh.
I wouldn't be surprised
UVs.
if it got opened up. But please don't. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Let me throw this out real quick. I would never incorporate.
The last conversation with.
Continue.
Sorry.
No, please knock yourself out.
Lag. No, I'm just getting some lag. No, what I was going to say, the last conversation that I had with Jeff, you couldn't create your own meshes inside of
Yeah, the last conversation I had with Jeff, same exact thing. Jeff said that, and this was with UDK, is that you could not create your own geometry on the fly. So talking about making your own mesh, your own vertices, edges, polys, the whole 9 yards, right there inside of UDK. You had to be a licensee.
Right, and it's important that people differentiate UDK and Unreal Engine 3. Licensing the engine and going and downloading UDK are two entirely different things.
And that's something that we're going to explore, and it may backfire on us. That's part of the whole R&D process, but I don't think it's going to. I think it's actually going to work out. As you've seen, for many of you that have watched the, I shall call them mouseless Lee R&D videos with the new terrain stuff.
There you go. Spin it like a feature.
That's right. They're the very special mouseless,
mouseless videos.
Where we're going with that, I don't remember who it was. I deal with so many names now. This class is just staggering in size. It's now the biggest class we've ever had at 3D Buzz for sure. Do you remember who it was, Lee, that posted over there about Hero Engine?
RHM, I believe.
Oh, was it Mr. RHM? Awesome, because he's here with us now. For those of you that haven't checked out Hero Engine, it's damn cool to get a RHM for the win. It's
hey, Con, I can't repeat what you just said, but happens to me all the time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it does. But if you watch those videos, that video he posted up where you can see 3 people that are working together in an environment where they are, somebody's sculpting, somebody's moving some geometry, placing it, somebody else is painting, and then one guy jumps over, and it is just very, very cool. And I'll be honest, I would very much like to see us with that kind of ability. Say, oh, very cool. Mr. Overmine, I've actually worked with Hero Engine at my first job. A lot of awesome ideas in it. Very much so. The whole spec system and spec oracles, very, very cool.
Niels is headed out. Good night, Niels.
Good night, Niels. Take care, my friend. So, for starters, I love the what was the term you kind of coined the other day?
Oh,
don't forget it now.
No. Real-time artist collaborative environment.
There you go.
So the acronym was RACE?
Yeah. Very cool. I like that idea. I like being able to... It would just be cool standing in an environment where somebody's sculpting on one side and somebody's sculpting on another side. Obviously, you've got to have some layer of, or some level of coordination going on. But if nothing else, this would be a very cool thing for us to explore. Mm-hmm. Lee feels very confident that we can pull it off without it even being very expensive network-wise. So, Matt had just said something, Matt CSCZ, someone will hack it and make a terrain over your city. Not so much that, but the fact that he mentioned city. Want to talk a little bit, Lee, about some of our city discussions?
Oh, you mean about seeing if I can't make something like City Engine inside of Unity along with everything else?
Yeah, procedurally. Well, you said you had some interesting ideas for it. That some of the stuff we talked.
For procedurally generated cities.
Yeah, some of the stuff we talked about at lunch had me going, yeah, I do like that. That sounds very doable. So, but one of the things, not getting into game mechanics, but somehow, I still want players to have real estate. Don't know how we'll work it out.
It's so easy, though,
conceptually. Conceptually, very easy. I would love for players to have, if you had, imagine some grungy market area where players could have space
for a store,
for a storefront that they could sell their own stuff from. That's the kind of stuff that if WoW had stuff like that, you'd never see me again.
As long as there was a microtransaction rent, I'm all in. All in.
It would be fun stuff. Now, I am hoping, ladies and gentlemen, that maybe by next week we can start having some game mechanics discussions. I wasn't, as I've said, I wasn't planning on that being months out. I do want to get around to daydreaming and putting 12 million features in the feature pool, and then we'll go back through them and pull our 6 features out. Just kidding.
Yeah, well,
but I do want to have fun and just populate the hell out of a feature pool with everything that we think would be fun, and so that then we can just step back and start looking at all of these different features and saying, well, this would just be out of the question because we'd spend so much time on R&D that it would be ridiculous, but this is a good idea. Also, not to mention, Nelson is somebody who I really hope, depending on his schedule and all, that he can play a heavy role when we start talking about game mechanics. And here's why. Nelson hates MMOs. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and turn him into an organizer real quick. Give me 1 second, because I think he's still in here, because that way Nelson can talk as well. One second. And it won't let me unmute Nelson. Oh, there he is. Wow, he's a little slow. Hey, Nelson, how you doing?
Hello? Hey.
Hey. So, what'd you think of the story?
Hey, it was pretty good. Hey, yeah, actually, I'm still at work. I have to go run to the bank.
Ooh, well, let me not call you while you're at work.
yeah. Get out of here, go!
But while you're there for 2 seconds, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about jacking up those videos last night. That is so my fault.
No, I planned that.
No, it was my fault. It was it's just been a horrible day because of that. But you go to the bank. Give me a shout when you get to the house, okay?
All right, talk to you.
All right, bye. Anyways, here's what I love about old Nelson. He hates MMOs, which is great because he loves games. So when we start talking and he starts throwing off the things he hates, he starts talking about the things he'd like to see. And that's all information that is very, very valuable to me. How can we make a game that's an MMO where your typical people that absolutely hate MMOs would play this and be like, damn, this is fun. But anyways, all right, so there's the story of the human side, where it's at. Just a little bit more that's going to be finessed with that, but you've got the main...
Yeah, the main hooks are there.
Yep. We've got our corporations.
There's all kinds of stuff I could put in terms of adding some lore characters, changing a few corporations around, exposing different angles to the story. But I really was, because I was actually on a pretty tight time schedule myself, I haven't really allowed myself to get too far into all that.
And Meat, while we're not going to do this now, I'm going to cheat a little because I can. Meat says that I hate most MMOs. It's a bit more fun when they add in clicking and button combinations to do moves instead of just 1, 2, 3. And for those of you that have not played MMOs, he's talking about rotations.
Yeah.
And with a lot of, like in World of Warcraft, every class has what they consider their primary rotation for whatever spec they are.
Which, a rotation by definition is just a series of abilities that have been discovered by somebody who studied over and over to be the most efficient abilities in a specific order that you can perform.
It's called theory crafting. And with theory crafting, you can get in there and you can basically tweak out every single possible DPS point, damage per second, that you could squeeze out of every possible gem combination, set bonus combination, weapons, etc., etc.
Basically, some uber nerd.
Yeah,
like you only thought you were a nerd.
Which between you guys and me was one of the things I love so much about WoW, because that's where it was fun for me. Instead of just taking what people post online and say, this is, you should do 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1. If it procs, hit 4. It's like, that's not fun. But sitting there and working it out for yourself and the numbers and going through every little talent and that was, to me, was damn fun, because it's kind of getting into a technical side of the combat system. And it's one of the reasons, you know, I've seen so many people say, oh, playing a mage in WoW so lame because you know, all you hit is arcane blast, arcane blast, arcane blast, arcane blast, and then we've got to knock off our stacks because our mana cost is too high. But you know, there are yeah, mages are the best. Fire mages, a lot of fun to play. I love arcane as well, but PvP is so much more fun to me. That's not fair. I love both equally, and I'll get to why in a second on the PvE side. But with PvP, you don't stand there with somebody and go 1 1 1 1 2 1 1 1. Oh crap! It proc 3. You don't do that. It is you know, silencing, spell stealing, blinking through people, deploying my mirrors and I love deploying and blinking through somebody, and then stand there I got Zach with it, I've gotten Angie with it, I got Lee with it, I've got several friends on the internet with it, because if you time it just right, my mirrors come out, I blink through them, they didn't even see me disappear, and so they just pick one of those guys and start blasting away, and I'm standing behind them going, it's just 1 second of pure entertainment to me. But with PvP, it becomes a much more dynamic combat thing. With PvE in World of Warcraft, it really comes down to rotation and making sure all of your equipment, your spec, all of that stuff is just right to get the highest DPS, because everybody wants to be God when it comes to doing damage. Unless you're somebody like Zach, who Zach now brings the pain in both the world of DPS while keeping the threat, because he's a warrior. Now, come on, you know, after Cataclysm you hit 85, well, suddenly on mobs, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with me? Zach's beating the hell out of me on numbers here.
They changed a lot of the mechanics, though.
Oh, but it's still so much fun. But the reason I love the PvE side so much is because now you're having to rely on a bunch of friends, or a bunch of morons, or a bunch of both, or a bunch of dicks, and we've had those days too. But
I can't do it. I can't be mean to people.
I know. I
do not have it in me. I tried once because this guy really irritated me, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, and me, I you know, I just want to climb through the magical internet tubes and come out at that guy's house to beat his head in with a 2x4.
Awesome.
Because being a 12-year-old dick is just so pointless on the internet, and it just makes me, oh God, it angers me. Lee knows that. You remember that one night, Lee?
I remember the ninja.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna be away for the next 3 hours trying to cause this guy nothing but hell.
Yep. Yeah. Lee got so screwed over one night by these two guys, and I think it was finally a couple hours later, both Zach and Lee was saying, "All right, Jason, knock it off. I just wanted to know where he lived. Damn it."
Yeah, I'm the one that got screwed over, and I was over after like 20 minutes. Okay, let's go do something. You just go like, oh hell no!
You don't screw over my friends. Hey Gav, this VTM is for mature audiences only. Remember, we've already said
it's just a meeting.
All of the MMO development meetings are open. Oh God, we actually got away with last night's video being lost. We were going to have the first video ever with the F word in it multiple times. And the TWAT word, because some people out there find that offensive. Because going to Raven's site, they've got that live Twitter feed, and there was a guy in there that was so unhappy it was ridiculous. And Nelson's in the middle of talking about RavenDB, and I look over at the Twitter feed, and I'm like, oh dear God.
You're totally safe, man. Nobody ever reads anything anyway.
Well, there was
I don't know. There was profanity. People probably read profanity.
Yeah, it pulled my eyes away from the document format.
That would be the secret. Next time I have to write like a really long article, I'll just smatter it with profanity, and everybody will always read it.
Well, that's now gone. But anyways, back to the gaming stuff. You know, Meat started it, and I said we weren't going to talk gaming, but it's still fun to talk gaming when we don't tie it too much to what we're going to do at the moment. But I do agree with you, and I love hearing from from people like Meat who say, I hate it because you do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I like it more of button combinations and make it more complicated. And that, I really hope to get a lot of feedback from you guys when we get into game mechanics. I hope some more Roberts show up with some very creative ideas that give inspiration, that lead towards game mechanics that we're just not yet seeing in MMOs, and maybe we can break some new ground, because I don't think MMOs have gone as far as they can. Everybody's just fallen in the rut of, well, we got to make another WoW clone because they've got 12 million subscribers and they're successful, so we've got to do the same thing. And again,
and even the companies who say they're not, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. So, anyways, I very much Mr. J.J. Abrams, just like we call Matt Damon.
Yeah, it's just easier to say.
Yeah. So Mr. Guzzardo, he's now Mr. J.J. Abrams. So anytime I say that, we know who we're really talking to. He says, what about a FPS MMO rather than auto-targeting? Woo.
Do you have any idea the amount of communication that has to
actually, Mr. Abrams is very slick with quite a bit of experience up under his belt, so he's aware. But yeah, I would have.
Well, I mean, I was just saying, aren't there several different first-person shooter MMOs that failed?
I don't know.
There was at least that one that was supposed to come out from Unreal Engine 3 that was just touted for years, and then it just vanished.
RHM. So APB was just it was actually you aim and, well, yeah, it had to have been, because some of the cheats that came out for it after it went live were like aimbot type cheats.
Yeah, I guess.
Auto
I mean,
aim.
I could be wildly out of touch.
I read a post-mortem on that the other day that was just absolutely amazing. I'll see if I can find the link and maybe post it in the MMO class. It's very much worth reading. But I was blown away with their whole development idea. It was just crazy. Because I guess you weren't levels in there. You were R ratings.
Yeah.
And they were mixing the ratings together and people that could fight. And basically, if you ended up coming into the game after you had a whole bunch of R200s and above, then it made for a complete nightmare for your beginners coming in, because they're all mixed in the same place, and everybody knows that's been playing for some time the best places to go and hide, and it just, what I read, I was like, wow. And then when the game was finally released, and you had everybody then jumping into play, as soon as that happened, all of these cheats became available, giving you the ability to see and shoot through walls. What kind of server authentication are they using?
Apparently the same kind that Counter-Strike uses.
I was just, I don't know, but I mean, and then reading further in this article, the way that the developers responded was they were just going to wait for people to post videos on YouTube to like track those people down and ban them and all, but that's some serious flaws that have to be corrected immediately.
And somebody said implement a combat system such as Infinity Blade. I liked that game for like the first 10 minutes.
You know, Infinity Blade is... I really liked it too. It got old for me. It was just very repetitive. It was very cool at first. And Mr. Enrico asks, will the MMO class have anti-cheat systems? Absolutely. I mean, we want to treat this as the real deal, as much as we possibly can. Even though we're an educational company, hell, why not try to make it a real world in which, because, come on, you guys are going to get the prime real estate property if we can get, the ability to own property in place. You guys are going to get first dibs of the stuff that's on, with scenic views of the city and lakes and all.
Well, even the tech demo had anti-cheat stuff in it starting to get put in.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Again, getting, at first everything was client side, and then finally it was like, okay, this is cute. We've proven a lot of stuff working now. But, of course, for a real MMO, the simulation, the game, which I like to call the simulation, is really taking place on the server, not on a client. And so we begin moving everything over to the server. and getting rid of any sort of real business logic on the client. So the client just became a dumb window into the world. And yeah, we ended up taking that pretty far. And if you tried cheating in any of that, it would just simply lock out your account. But instead of just not validating or something. I see, Mr. Gavin, you're doing a great job. Thank you, sir, redeeming himself from earlier. As we're at 59 minutes. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and take Gavin's advice. We'll go ahead and end this one, and then we'll do one more. That'll be maybe a shorter session, as Zach is over here writing me a love note that says food. But we'll do one more session where we can take some questions, and then we'll wrap things up because it's been a heck of a lot of fun tonight. So anyways, that'll conclude this video. Thanks a lot, guys.